Welcome to the UK Travel Planning Podcast. Your host is the founder of the UK Travel Planning website, Tracy Collins. In this podcast, Tracy shares destination guides, travel tips, and itinerary ideas, as well as interviews with a variety of guests who share their knowledge and experience of UK travel to help you plan your perfect UK vacation. Join us as we explore the UK from cosmopolitan cities to quaint villages, from historic castles to beautiful islands, and from the picturesque countryside to seaside towns.
Hiya, I'm joined today on the podcast by my husband and co-author of the Guide to UK Train Travel ebook, Doug Collins, who's going to share his expert knowledge and love of travelling the UK by train to help you maximise your UK rail experience. Well, train travel is a passion for both of us, and we've explored England, Wales, Scotland, plus many destinations all over the world by train. Doug actually worked in the UK rail industry for over 25 years. In this episode, Doug not only shares his passion for train travel in the UK, but also practical tips to make your own UK rail adventures smoother and less stressful.
Hello, good to be here. Yes, I do love the railways. They've always been part of my life, my earliest childhood memories. We used to go on holiday all around the UK and Europe, always by train every year, which was no great surprise. My father worked for the rail industry, as did my brothers. And so as soon as I could, at the age of 16, I left school and began an electrical apprenticeship. And over the next 25 years, I did many varied different roles, and that included electrical engineering, testing and manufacturing new trains and old trains, and then as a project manager, and then before moving to the operational side of the industry. Over that time, weekends and holidays, I travelled everywhere in the UK by train, sometimes on my own, sometimes with friends, and I completed every single train line that was available to travel on at that time. It was great fun. I loved every single minute of it.
Okay, yeah, and I know since we've been married for the last, I think it's nearly 20 years now, we've spent a lot of time travelling the UK by train, and I actually have also developed a love for that I didn't know that I had until we met. So if our listeners are considering travelling the UK by train, what would be the key advantages that you identify for them to do the train travel?
Well, it's relaxing. To me, it's the most relaxing form of travel. And as the old British Rail slogan said, it was the 70s or 80s, let the train take the strain, really. And I think that says it all. You haven't got the problems that you have with traffic, and you're stuck in traffic, or having to worry about car parking spaces. And if you're not used to driving on the left, that could always be a problem. And trains generally arrive, the stations are in the middle of towns and cities, so you're straight there, you're straight into it. And along the way, you can sit back and you can enjoy the scenery, you can take it easy, you can have food and drink when you want, you can go and get it. I mean, generally it's brought to your seat these days. So it's just relaxing, it's just an easy mode of transport, really. And the big advantage to me, and I know Tracy feel the same, is it's easy to socialise. It's such great fun talking to people on trains. We've met some real interesting people along our travels, and they've all got different stories to tell and to share, and people want to share them.
Absolutely. I can think of the last time we took the Caledonian sleeper train from London Euston. I'll say that all the time. London Euston to Fort William, and I met this little old lady in the train corridor, and she was telling me all about the Glencoe massacre and the history behind the Campbells and the MacDonalds. And she was telling me that she was a MacDonald and she had married a Campbell, and that not to believe that everybody said that actually, that feud still continued and Campbells did not marry MacDonald. And she was quite interested to know that actually I was a descendant of the Campbells. So that was amazing, and it stuck in my memory. It was absolutely fantastic. And definitely, I think that for me is one of my favourite things about train travel, is just the people that you meet along the way. What about any disadvantages that you can identify to travel in the UK by train?
Well, realistically, I mean, albeit the rail coverage is very good in the UK, they certainly don't go everywhere. And if they don't go everywhere, you're going to need other modes of transport, and that realistically could be costly and time consuming if you're against the clock. Also, if you travel generally with lots of luggage or baggage, you've got to carry it everywhere you go, and you've got to keep it to a minimal. But some trains are easier than others to store or stow luggage, and I know it can be a bit of a strain for some people if they can't always see their luggage throughout the journey. So, yeah, that can be a disadvantage if you're just totally unable to keep your baggage down to that sort of minimal, manageable level.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And it's something that I've worked on over the years in terms of the amount of luggage that I take with me, especially when we're doing train travel anywhere actually in the world. But definitely something for listeners to consider. So obviously we've got lots of readers of our website and members of our UK travel planning Facebook community who they've said that they feel a little daunted and overwhelmed when it comes to planning their UK train travel. So what would be your top tips to, reduce that overwhelm and help them, plan the best UK train travel adventure that they can?
Well, firstly, I would say you've got to allow yourself enough time to comfortably get to the train station, in plenty of time to catch the train. That's can be difficult to find the right platform if you're not familiar with the station. Secondly, I would say be aware of exactly what station you want to go to. In Birmingham, for example, they have 3 mainline train stations. There's Birmingham New Street, Moore Street and Snow Hill. And if you get the wrong station, it could be not the start to your trip that you actually want. Thirdly, I would consider the amount of luggage. I've already alluded to that before. Is consider the amount of luggage you take with you and keep it to a minimal. And you want a manageable size and weight and be able to lift it above your head if required to do so.
Can I also just interject there as well to consider that you may purchase things during your trip? I know that's something that I tend to do. So the amount of stuff that's actually going in the luggage will increase and weight will increase. So do keep that in mind as well if you're going to plan to buy souvenirs along the way. That is going to increase the amount of luggage that you have. Yeah,
I can vouch for that. She definitely does that. That's true. Also, it seems obvious, but take your own snacks and drinks with you and not count on services on the train. Occasionally, the refreshment car can be closed, particularly at weekends. So if you take your own stock, you're not going to go too short with it. And finally, a good one is be aware of your rail itinerary for the day or for your trips, and be aware of your estimated time of arrival. That particularly relevant if you catch your multiple trains. So you need to know how you're progressing on your journey. Mm-hmm. So it's always good to be aware. And if that is the case, always talk to you. The train crews, they're incredibly helpful and knowledgeable and very willing to help.
Yeah, I think those are all really good points and excellent tips for anybody who's planning train travel. Certainly make it less stressful if you could take note of all of those tips. If I had to ask you what your favourite train journey was in the UK, and I know that's a really difficult question to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So what would you say is your favourite UK train trip?
That's a tricky one. I would say, as an easy way out, my favourite is always the last one I've done, but that is a bit of a cop-out of an answer. Generally speaking, I do enjoy the East Coast Main Line and the West Coast Main Line. So the East Coast Main Line runs from King's Cross in London, on the north of London, and that runs up into Edinburgh, up the East Coast Main Line, and stops at places like York, which are fantastic places to visit. The West Coast Main Line runs from London Euston to Glasgow Central. But a particular favourite, because it's from where I'm from, right in the middle of England, is what we call the cross-country lines, and running from Birmingham up to Edinburgh. And that runs through towns and cities, industrial areas, it runs through the countryside, it's a bit of everything. And it stops at a lot of the stations, and it isn't the fastest way to get to the north of England and Scotland, but to me, it's one of the most enjoyables. Many, as I say, that's from the area I'm from, in the middle of the country.
So, what future UK train travel plans do you have? Which is I kind of know the answer to this question, but I think it would be useful because we've been doing a lot of planning for a future trip that we have. So I know we have some really exciting train travel plans in the offing. So would you like to share those?
Well, there's always so many more things I want to do. There's always something new, and new trains. There's always a new place I want to go. But really, the one that we're planning to do this year is finally for me to experience the Jacobite Express that runs in North Scotland at the Highland Lines, and that goes from Fort William to Mallaig. And that's a steam train. For you Harry Potter fans will know all about that one, but I've never yet done it. So thoroughly looking forward to doing that one. And we've already booked that one. And also, what I want to do, as I said, I've already done all the train lines, but currently there's new lines opening up or reopening old closed lines, and opening new stations, and so I need to experience those. I need to go on these new lines. Not to mention there's lots of preservation and vintage lines I want to go and see how much time we have to do those, particularly one down in Dartmouth, up in the south of England, up in Devon. I've always wanted to do, so I aim to do that as soon as I can. But it's very exciting times in the UK. There's so many new trains on order and some being delivered, and I just can't wait to try them, really.
I know it's going to be really exciting, and I'm going to throw in one of my favourite train trips in the UK, which is a Caledonian Sleeper, which I absolutely love taking. The first time I ever took that, waking up in Scotland, and the views was just amazing. So that's certainly memories to last a lifetime. So I've taken that to Inverness, and we've done that up to Fort William, and we're hoping actually to do that the opposite way around, from Edinburgh down to London this coming June. So I'm really looking forward to that. Caledonian Sleeper is definitely one of those brilliant experiences. I know it's one of your favourites as well, but I did put you on the spot about trying to choose just one or two.
If I could bring them all to mind, I would tell you a dozen more. There's just so many I enjoy. There's just so many.
Well, thanks for kind of talking us through some of those tips, which will be really useful for listeners, and also considering the advantages and disadvantages of travel in the UK by train. Obviously, Doug will be back in future podcast episodes to share more of his knowledge and expertise of the UK train travel. I know we are planning definitely to talk about the Caledonian Sleeper, again with some information and tips for readers about if you're considering booking that service. As I say, it is one of our favourite trips, and if you're planning to add a trip to Scotland into your itinerary, it's a wonderful way to get up there. But for now, I'd like to say thanks for joining us in today's podcast. You will find a summary of Doug's train tips, plus links to our relevant train travel articles in the show notes for today's episode at uktravelplanning.com/episode 2. I will also include a link to our Guide to UK Train Travel ebook, which includes more tips, resources, and 12 done-for-you UK rail itineraries. Until next time, bye for now.